Welcome to the Altinity Instructional Video Series. I'm John Hummel, Senior Technical Writer for Altinity. This video continues our ClickHouse Hardening guide, focusing on user security. In our previous video, we went over how to use encrypted passwords and use SQL commands to create users, as user details can be set up in either XML files or set via SQL-based DCL, data control language, instructions. In this video, we'll be digging a little deeper into showing how to restrict user access by setting profiles and applying them to users, and restricting users to specific host names or IP addresses. In the first video on user security, we demonstrated how to apply these settings on both a single server and on a cluster. In this video, we're going to focus just on a single server to keep things simple, but to see how to apply these commands on a cluster level, please see Part 1 of our ClickHouse Hardening User Security Guide. To be notified about other videos in our instructional series, make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon. These instructions can also be found on our Altinity doc site, so you can copy and paste commands right into your terminal. Or if you're looking for the latest news about ClickHouse, check out the Altinity resources site, where you can sign up for upcoming webinars and find the latest ClickHouse techniques. In our examples, we're using Altinity ClickHouse stable release on a Linux Ubuntu 20.04 machine, a virtual machine really. We're going to be skipping over some practices, such as using roles and grant and revoke, as those are pretty common across databases. Set profiles. Profiles allow you to set the same settings to different users that limits the resources they can use in the system. A typical profile setting might lock down users in that profile to only be able to perform read queries, or limit a user to a maximum number of rows to read from so they don't bog down performance. This way, instead of having to apply different settings across all of your users, you can define them all at once in a profile and then apply that profile to the users. See the clickhouse.tech documentation site for more details on what profiles can be applied. We'll demonstrate two updates. First, we'll update the default profile through the XML files. After that, we'll create a new profile through the SQL commands and apply it to our user John. First, the XML way. The profile settings are stored in the users.xml file, located by default in /etc/ClickHouse server. We'll just open that up using nano. Sorry, V and Emacs users, you have my love too. And take a look. Right at the top of our user.xml file, we can see the profile section, and there are two profiles already available, default and read-only. Default, as you can imagine, is what's applied to all users unless we specifically give them a profile. This is a required profile. Read-only is a separate profile that's available if you want to lock down users to only be able to perform select queries that read information. For the default profile, let's lock it down so any new users can only perform read queries. We'll do this by adding the read-only flag to the default profile. As a quick note, the read-only option has three settings. 0 means anything goes, 1 equals read-only queries, and 2 equals read queries and update settings. Save the users.xml file once we've added the read-only settings. Excellent. Let's now log into ClickHouse with the ClickHouse client, and we can create our own profile through the SQL-driven commands. If you watch our video on how to secure user passwords, and if you didn't, we'll put up a handy link, you'll recall that we created a user named admin and granted it power overwhelming to create users and other important abilities. We're going to log in as that admin user and create our profile with SQL with the create settings profile command. The first part is the name of the new profile. Then we add in the settings command and list each setting we're assigning into the profile. And finally, as an optional step, we can specify the user to apply the setting to. Let's create a profile that sets a maximum memory usage setting to the user John. You can see the SQL command on your screen now. And it failed. Remember when we said that the profile default applies to everyone unless we specify a profile for that user? Well, when we applied the read-only setting to the default profile, we prevented the admin user, who is still assigned the default profile, from making any SQL commands except for read ones. Let's do this right. First, remove the read-only setting from the profile default in the users.xml file and resave it. Second, we'll create a profile for the admin user that allows them to write anything they want with. You can see the command on the screen. We're applying the setting of read-only equals 0 to the profile admin, then assigning that profile to the admin user. Great. Now we'll exit, update user.xml, and add read-only back into the default profile. Log back in as admin, who, as you recall, has a special profile named admin now applied to them, and now we can create our profile for John, as you can see on the screen. I know this was a roundabout way of showing things, but I wanted to show you some common mistakes, so this way you're ready for them. I encourage you to look over the ClickHouse.tech site to see more about how profiles can be used and how the settings can be applied. Restrict networks. Now let's go over how to restrict users by their host network. ClickHouse allows you to restrict what networks a user can connect from by either the IP address, addresses, or subnet, the host name, or a regular expression of host names. Before we start, I'm going to mention that the listener settings for ClickHouse are stored in /etc/config.xml. I've set mine to listen to all IP addresses by setting the list_host option to : This is another place where you can lock down how your ClickHouse server connects to the network. We're focusing on user security in these videos, so again, see the ClickHouse.tech documentation site for more details on server configuration. As before, user network settings apply to both the XML and the SQL methods. We'll start with XML. If we look at the default user, we see a network setting like this. Networks with the IP address of : /0. This IP setting means allow any connections from any networks. That doesn't sound very secure. Let's lock down the default user so they can only connect from localhost, whether it's IPv6 or IPv4 localhost. See the settings on your screen now. There, we can even test this out real quick. This is a virtual machine, so I'll just open up this terminal window on the host computer, which is on a separate IP address, and try to connect to it. No connection allowed. And when I do it from within the virtual machine from localhost, connection approved. Simple enough. Now let's do it in a SQL fashion. Log into ClickHouse. We'll keep using the ClickHouse client, and we're going to update the user John. Let's make it so we can only connect to the IP address from my host machine. We'll log in as the admin user first. Then alter the user John and drop all networks from his list with alter user if exists John, drop host any. We can test it out with yet another terminal window. I know, I'm a terminal window freak. And try to connect as John. Nope, we've been rejected, even though I had this amazing password. Now we'll give John the .ability to log in from this specific IP address on the network. Alter user if it exists John, add host IP 192.168.86.101. Retest as user John. And I can connect from the external IP address, but I can't connect John from the local IP address. You can add additional IP addresses, or if you use the name setting instead of IP, you can add host names and keep adding as many as you want. Rather than adding one host name after another, the regex, it's regular expression, regexp setting can be used to set regular expressions for the host names. For example, you may recall when we set up our Kerberos-based ClickHouse cluster, the default user had the following set up. I'm not going to read all that, but what it does, it locks down the default user to only be able to connect from localhost, or from a network whose DNS name resolves to starting with chi, which matches the services available through the Kubernetes-based network. This has been a very brief look on how to use profiles and restrict network access by IP and hostname to users to enhance ClickHouse security. In other videos for our ClickHouse security series, we will demonstrate how to use quotas and row filters. If you want to be notified about that, make sure you've subscribed and have rang the notifications bell. This guide and others can be found on the Altinity doc site at docs.altinity.com. Other ClickHouse user-related webinars and posts are available on the Altinity resources page. I'm John Hummel, Senior Technical Writer for Altinity. Thank you for watching. Until next time, happy coding.